I don't view anybody else as competition, because I think that's when it raises unnecessary anxiety or thinking that you're not good enough and how can you be better. I just use myself as the standard. I'm genuine, I'm authentic when it comes to letting them know what are the best practices in terms of introducing those products within my own practice. I have been pouring more money into my practice, maybe not as much financial return, but it's the spiritual return. Life is not a dress rehearsal. It's not. And so we might as well just go for it.
Marcel Proust once said, "The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but having new eyes." Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nerdy Optometrist, a podcast channel for all things eye care, and this is your host, Ukti Vora. Before we dive into yet another amazing episode, don't forget to follow my channel and listen to this as well as all the other episodes on your favorite platform. With that, it's an honor and pleasure to invite our guest for today, who is an absolute powerhouse within our industry. She's been anchoring her practice in Rosemead, California since 1995. She's a national speaker, a consultant for major contact lens manufacturers, a passionate advocate for premium patient experience, and, not to forget, a fellow podcaster as well. If you haven't followed her, it's time for you to follow her podcast called Chew on This, and I'll be dropping that link in the description as well. Beyond the slit lamp, she's a world traveler, a breast cancer survivor, a 5-time best-selling author, and today she's stepping up to my microphone to share an exclusive, massive announcement for the first time that she's currently writing her highly anticipated memoir. It's an honor and a pleasure to welcome Dr. Katie Chu on my podcast. A very warm welcome to the Nerdy family.
My goodness, that was just that was a lot for me to take in, but thank you so much. You're so kind.
Well, we're going to dig deep into all of this because I know this is such an exciting thing for me to learn from you. We did have a few conversations offline before we, planned this episode, but you have been in practice for 30 years. But before that, I want you to kind of go way beyond and tell me, how did you get into the world of optometry and eye care? How did your journey even begin in this space?
I will have to say that I followed my heart. I followed a boy. And so there was a boy back in college he was very set in his ways. He already knew that he was going to optometry school. And at that time, I thought I was going to study biology and graduate and teach biology at high school level. But love kind of turns you in a different direction. And I followed my heart. And so because he was studying optometry, I thought, well, I might as well, follow in his path. But I'm glad I did. I mean, we ended up not being together and we went our separate ways, but there are no regrets. This is a path that was meant to be.
Yeah, I think we are grateful that because you followed your heart, you were introduced to eye care. And I keep saying this, once you're part of eye care, there's no going back. You're stuck in this space forever.
Yeah. Well, and what I learned is that because I thought my passion was to educate and teach, and I thought it was going to be high school biology. And looking at where I am now, I have been teaching all these years in the exam room with my patients, with my own children, raising them, educating them. And now in our industry, when I do my dinner presentations, I'm also educating. So I am doing the best of both worlds, right? I'm providing valuable eye health care as well as educating.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think your passion talks a lot through everything that you've been doing. And I shared in the introduction, right? Like from being a consultant to training your patients, talking to them, teaching them, taking care of your kids, as well as writing books. Like all this comes, I think, back from the passion of educating and sharing knowledge with the community.
100%. Yes.
So you have been practicing for 30 years and you have this practice. And I think I want to ask you a question where there are so many corporate chains that are coming up and everybody kind of feel that there's a pressure and competition. How do you survive that competition and pressure? And how do you stay up to date with your patient expectation as well as the industry trends? If you can tell me a little more about that.
I think the secret to my own personal slash professional success, the secret to that has always been that I don't worry about competition. I've never seen a corporate entity, another private practice down the street as competition. I always took myself as my own competition. So if I wanted to be better, I needed to be better than how I was yesterday. And I just keep moving myself forward, but staying within my own lane. That's all I've been doing all these past 30 years. And yes, I know it now, right now, the corporate entity with all the private equity groups coming in, I still believe that private practice is still much needed. And, I do have colleagues that have gone to private equity and, some are okay, but others have kind of they have voiced regret. And because it wasn't what they had expected, and that the practice that they had nurtured and watched it grow on the private sector is a completely different environment now.
Mhm.
And so I think for me right now, I'll never say no to anything. I've learned that now. I'm not going to put myself in a box. And right now, I still enjoy private practice. Like I said, I think the main thing is that I don't view anybody else as competition, because I think that's when it raises unnecessary anxiety or thinking that you're not good enough and how can you be better. I just use myself as the standard.
I love that. I think that's a great
Yeah.
learning because there's so much out there. Sometimes it can be overwhelming. It can give you anxiety. You might be grateful for where you are today, but with by comparing yourself through others' standards or bars, we don't even know their journey. We just look a part of their journey and might feel like you're not enough. So I think with this whole feeling of not being enough, this might actually be a great solution to just be better at what you are and be a better version of yourself. I think that's a great lesson.
Yeah, yeah, because the grass will always look greener on the other side. But if you are just staying within your own garden and slowly water it and nurture it every day, I mean, you're gonna have things that are gonna grow beautifully, and you don't have to worry about what's on the other side. So
That's true.
yeah.
I like the idea that you do right for what you want to
Mhm.
stand up for, and I think you will grow and you will flourish. But
Yes.
now I'm trying to switch gears a little more from practice to industry because I think, as you mentioned, right, you have love for education, for teaching, and that's why you briefly mentioned, like, talking at dinners, educating and being a speaker on behalf of the industry, right? So being a speaker as at an industry level and having your own practice, what are some biggest educational gap? And I'm asking that because you love to educate. Do clinicians feel that they face today, especially if they want to add something like specialty contact lenses or any new things in their own practice? Do you have any ideas around what do you feel are the major educational gap within the clinical expertise?
Well, personally, I think right now the gap is getting smaller in
Mm.
terms of how the industry is approaching dinner programs, or how they're educating other doctors in terms of their products. And I think they're getting really good at focusing on relational as opposed to transactional relationships. I think for me, being a speaker for the last, I guess it's going to be 7 years soon, time has gone by really fast. And last year I hit over 100 presentations. So that was exciting for me. Yeah, I've been very blessed. And I think the main thing about when I present in front of other doctors, the feedback that I get is that I'm genuine, I'm authentic when it comes to letting them know what are the best practices in terms of introducing those products within my own practice, and showing them what the outcomes are in terms of patient satisfaction. But beyond that, it's also elevating the patient's experiences. But I think the key thing is that, or the gems that people take away from my dinners is that I do bring it back down to how they can implement it into their own practices. And I think that's the main thing where we're closing the gap now with speaker programs where they're bringing real life experiences into the dinner rooms.
Yeah, I love the fact that these dinner rooms or these conversations, and I'm glad you mentioned that you do that as well, is more practical implementation versus theory, which is great to listen to. But then if I don't have a couple of things that I can implement like right now, it's just hard to follow. It might be a great theory, but then I might just forget about it, say after the dinner, right? So I'm glad
Yeah.
that you're focusing on the fact that you can get information that you can implement in your practice today. And I think I love that about you as well as the kind of knowledge you're trying to impart within the industry.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I was just going to add that, first of all, I am a clinician. I am not a scientist, if that makes sense. So
yeah.
I think that's where, when I come into a program and my clinician side comes out strong. And I think that's where people appreciate that because, if they've seen patients all day long and they're coming to a educational program, they don't really want just more scientific stuff thrown at them. They want to learn and learn how to implement these products into their real world.
Yeah, I think I love the fact that you said that your clinician side of you is always there, even when you're lecturing you as a consultant. So I think one thing that you had mentioned in one of your details that I've been researching about you is when you think about your practice and the way you're setting up your practice, you think about it as a spiritual investment versus a financial one. I think that was a very interesting piece that I read about you and how you've been thinking about your practice. And I want you to kind of highlight a little more of how you're thinking, which probably can help the listeners to rethink or shift the way they are thinking about their practice or empowering their patient. If you can tell me a little more about that.
First of all, I love my practice. I love the location where my practice is. And the demographics of my practice may not be what most practices are like, but the reality is that almost 70% of my patient base is on Medicaid. So they do need financial assistance. And that's my demographics. And so from the beginning of me opening my practice, I made a commitment to that community that I was always going to provide the best service, the best care, the best technology. And it wasn't going to be based on what they can or cannot afford. I
Mhm.
was going to educate them first. And then at the end, let the patient decide what they choose. And what I have learned through my journey of 30 years or 3 decades, and it's almost like 4.5 to 5 generations of patients now, they're extremely loyal to me. They're extremely loyal. And I don't do any advertisements or anything like that. And people keep referring others to me. And at the end of the day, my take home in terms of, the revenue that I generate, it's I have to work 3.5 to 4 times harder than a regular traditional practice because of my demographics.
Mm.
But I've learned to accept it. And I have not increased the number of patients that I'm seeing per hour to make up that difference. I've chosen to still give 20 to 30 minutes per patient, despite them being on Medicaid. Because as we all know, in the state of California, Medi-Cal has not increased their reimbursement in the entire time that I've been practicing. So yes, I have made a conscious decision to accept my reimbursement for the service that I provide to my community, but it's much needed. And when I say it's a spiritual investment, I have been pouring more money into my practice, maybe not as much financial return, but it's the spiritual return because my patients deserve it. They shouldn't be, have anything less just because of their financial situation. So 2 years ago, I put in about $100,000 into my practice to make it look beautiful and boutique-ish, and it has beautiful high-end frames for my patients. And then last year, I brought in almost another 100,000 in equipment, new imaging technology, all that. And then this year, I decided to bring in a business consultant to grow my practice, and knowing what my constraints are, if that makes sense. Because at the end of the day, the state of California, I don't know what it takes for them to ever see the value of what me as a provider is providing to patients who are on welfare. I
Yeah.
mean, and my patients, they come in and they are so thankful because so many of my colleagues that had started practicing with me 30 years ago, they are no longer taking them as patients anymore. So, which makes my practice busier and busier. But like I said, that's my own spiritual journey, and that's what I meant by a spiritual investment.
I love that. I think that's such a big social message, I would say. I mean, this works for you, but for anyone who's listening to it, if you feel alone, if you're giving back to the community, there is no end to kind of make more money. And of course, everybody would love and appreciate having more money. Why not, right? But we should not forget the fact that we have joined this profession, or we joined to be part of the healthcare community to help these patients. And I love the fact that you haven't been hesitating in investing in new technologies or adding more technology for your patients, so they deserve the best. And thinking about them, I'm sure you can sleep well, you can feel good, and this is spiritual for you, but I think it is a great learning lessons for so many of us listening to this, that we need to give back to the community. That has to be somewhere which is part of everyone's conscious. And I mean, I cannot appreciate the fact that you've been doing this for like 30 years. I think this is incredible.
Well, and I have always framed it this way. It's somebody who might be on Medi-Cal today may not be on it tomorrow, right? And even me as Dr. Chu, I might be seeing them today and I'm not on Medi-Cal, but I can be on Medi-Cal tomorrow.
Yeah.
Life can change like in an instant. And so that's why it's like I feel like this energy just flows, full circle in my practice, and there's full respect for each other, and it's a beautiful community. Yeah,
I love that. I love the
I
fact
love
that
it too.
you're so passionate about community,
I am.
patient care. It's so visible and that energy is
Ah,
contagious, and I love that.
yeah.
So you are an optometrist, you're a podcaster, you're also a songwriter, and you're a five-time best-selling author. I really need to know what is your secret sauce. And not to forget your mother to two daughters. Like, you have
Yes.
raised two kids while doing all of this. How do you manage this so-called term work-life balance, or work-life? I mean, I don't know if there is true balance, but like, how do you manage all of this?
So you're not the first one to ask me, how do I handle all this? And I think just by my nature, I've always been an extrovert. So ever since I was little, I just have to keep busy. And I'm also a early riser and a late owl. So I function very well off of like maybe 5 hours of sleep. And I've been like this all my life. And so I think now that I'm an empty nester, so yes, I did raise my two daughters, but they're adults now and they don't live with me. And so the time that I had used to raise them, that's where now I use that time for myself. And that's the part where I am realizing that, it takes a village, it takes energy to raise children. But I'm at this point in my life where now I realize that I need to turn that energy back towards myself. And I also need a village to raise me. And so that's why I don't hesitate to lean on others. It's just like how I taught my daughters. It's like, never assume that you know everything, because I know I don't know everything. And so I think the way I've been able to like push through all these things that you're talking about, it's because I know that there's so many other people that are great resources for me. And so I lean on them, and so I think that's definitely has helped me keep that balance. A lot of it, I think, also has to do with my alignment of my purpose. Once I realized what my purpose is, which is to stay committed in serving my community, that I realized that part of what they have given to me was all this storytelling in the exam rooms. And I think we as optometrists are the best in terms of understanding that, right? Our eye exams are not like a traditional doctor coming into the exam room and spending only 3 minutes or 5 minutes and they're out the door, right? So we build conversations and relationships in the exam room. And so I took that and applied it to my podcast because I felt like there are so many stories that have lifted me and kept my spirits up through my patients telling me about their journeys, that I felt like, well, I need to have a platform where people can hear these stories. And that's where Chew on This comes from. I didn't want it to be a platform where it was only for optometrists or that it was only for our eye care industry. Of course, right now, a lot of my guests are coming from our industry, but
Yeah.
if you look back at my guests, they don't have to be.
Mhm.
And that's the beauty of it, is that it could be anybody who has a story to share. I welcome them to be on my podcast.
Oh, lovely, lovely. I really like the fact that story. I think you are a true teacher by heart. I think storytelling, education, you come back to that. And I think it is reflecting in everything that you do and you said. And the community, I think like your teacher inside you, who always care about the kids or the community. I think all that has kept you really grounded and your energy is so contagious in a positive way. And I'm loving it.
Yeah, and I think this energy has spilled over to both of my daughters,
Nice.
and so yeah, it is nice, as a parent to see the seeds that you've planted, right? And then
Yeah.
watch them grow and flourish. And so yeah, I mean, like I think you might have already known this, but my younger daughter is in the military. She decided to serve our country, and she's having the best time of her life. I mean, she's a Marine and she's learning how to fly aircrafts right now out in Pensacola, Florida. And yeah, and it's not easy. Don't get me
Oh,
wrong.
yeah.
It's extremely difficult, but she's doing it because she has so much passion for doing what she's doing, that every time when she talks to me about it, it's like she has a big smile on her face. And you know what, Marine, if you think about it, she has such a busy schedule, but she finds time to call me and talk to me at least once a week. And I am so thankful for that. And then my other daughter, she's in the sports industry, and she's also, she's closer to me. She's out in Orange County. So proximity wise, she's maybe 30 something miles away from me. So she's much closer than my younger daughter who's out in Florida. But, even with her busy schedule, like we try to meet at least twice a month.
Oh,
And so
nice.
we can have lunch together or have dinner together. Or sometimes I just like to hang out at her apartment. And it's just nice to see your daughter have her own place. Even though she's renting, it's still nice to have them have
Yeah.
their own place.
I
Yeah,
know. I'm sure it's such a proud mama
it
moment
is.
for you for sure.
It
Like
is.
my babies are growing, they're independent, they're becoming probably something that I'm sure it's exactly or even better than what you would have imagined, right? Like
Oh yeah.
it's so good to see your kids grow and flourish. But I want to kind of switch gear and talk about the fact that you had promised this is the first time that you're going to tell this on my podcast about your story, about your memoir. What led you to think about writing your story? And tell us a little more. Tell me all the insights that I can kind of use and use my platform to
Um,
be the first one where you talk
yeah,
about.
yeah. This on your podcast, it's going to be the first time where I'm telling everyone that hopefully my with my publisher, I think we are aiming to have my memoir be released on my birthday, which is August 8th. So
Oh,
hopefully, that's why I didn't want to speak about it too soon, but we'll see. It's in its final draft right now. And so, but I've been writing it for, gosh, over a year. And the funny thing is that I initially thought that that was my first release of a literary art work for me. And but it turned out that my children's books came out first. And I think that was all intended by God. I do have to say that. That was part of him letting me know that work was it took priority. And I'm going to share a little bit about this first, and I think again not very many people know about this. So I released the children's books back in October of last year, and I've been releasing one every 2 to 3 months. And the very first one is it's based on a group of dinosaurs, and the first book was called Chewy's Bold Move. Well, Chewy is me. She's a beautiful T-Rex, and she wears her pink chest real proudly. And it's because she is me, and I'm a breast cancer survivor. And through these books, I know they're meant for children, but the stories behind it in terms of the backstory comes from my own journey of child abuse. And so that's why a lot of the books, in terms of the cover, it shows a nighttime scene. And it's because my abuser, which was my mother, it usually came during nightfall, and it usually came when I would be asleep in my bedroom. And it was not sexual abuse. I am going to clarify that. But she would terrorize me in the middle of the night. And so what I'm trying to say is that these children's books came of priority because the messaging in there is to let children between the ages of 4 and 7. This was the age when I think I received the most abuse, but there was nobody for me to turn to because I thought it was normal. And so these books are to remind children that they can be brave, they can be strong, they can have hope and dream, and they'll be okay. And the nightfall that comes in these storybooks that I have, they're filled with beautiful lullabies. And that's where the songwriting comes, is that my lyrics, I told my producer, my music producer, that every book I had to have a lullaby. And so he was able to help me produce these beautiful songs that let children know that they can fall asleep and still feel that they're safe. And so I know that this is a lot of things going on right now, but I just want to share that came precedence. And then now my memoir is going to focus on the adult themes, the actual things that have happened in my life. And it's been a painful journey. Like I said, writing the memoir was it still is. When I sit down and write, I sometimes will just break down in tears, and I'm still writing as I'm wiping away tears. Like it's just part of the process. And I think everything that I'm doing right now, it is very therapeutic. I have to say that. It's part of my journey.
I have to say, you're such a beautiful soul. You like everything you shared. I think it talks a lot about being brave, being able to accept who you are, because sometimes that's challenging, and being able to come out and talk about it, and not just coming and talking, but supporting the community, supporting the kids, so that what you went through, you don't want them to go through it, or like, sharing that in a beautiful story, in a song. Like, I think there is so much to learn from you, and your journey has not been easy. I know I have recently started to know you, and just listening to your story, I get goosebumps, because looking at you, you're full of energy. You're always smiling. You are like the most happiest person, but there's so much that has gone
And I
through.
think, yeah, and I think part of all this was part of my coping mechanism as a kid. I mean, you can see why I had to find ways to always look at the brighter side. But that's why, as an adult, I look back and I think I have to lean on faith as to why I came out okay, because there could have been so many other choices that I could have made, and I could have gone in a wrong direction or in a different direction and not be where I am right now. And so I have to be very thankful, and I have to understand that there was a reason for everything that has happened.
No, I think you're being very brave, and
Thank
I'm
you.
sure we all can't wait to get the book, learn more about you through your memoir. Good luck with it. And I'm sure it would be a great birthday gift for yourself. And I
Yeah.
have to say this, I've been following you on LinkedIn, and I've seen how you've been also talking not just about community and talking to different guests, but you have also made sure that you put in a lot of positive content about self-care and putting yourself first. I think in general, I would say I can talk about myself being a woman, being an Indian woman, right? Like, we are always thinking about family and like friends and like everyone else, for me, myself, I can say it's so hard to think about myself. Like for me, I would always question, do I deserve it? But if it's for my loved ones, I would go all in without a thought. Like it just is the way it is. To a point, I'll be like, why do I question that I don't deserve it, but everybody else does? And you've been talking a lot about it on LinkedIn that I have followed, and I've been like really, really happy about the fact that you need to take care of yourself first. Like, love yourself. You're the only one who's going to be your champion. And I think I would let you talk more about it, but I love that positive message that you're putting out there for the community, for that one person who might be feeling lonely or depressed, and then seeing your message really cheers them up. So tell me a little more about why did you started posting those positive things out there on LinkedIn?
So again, the posting, that was just an extension of me as I started realizing about who I am and what my purpose is. And if you really look back at LinkedIn and follow the history of when I started, I I built my, how should I say, my profile back in January of last year. I built my profile and I posted like maybe one time every maybe 3 weeks or something. And it wasn't until August, my birthday, that I decided that I was going to be bold, and I posted a vulnerability poem. It was a poem that I had wrote to my dying therapist, so she never got to read it. But it was a poem of gratitude towards to her, and to let her know how much I've grown as a client of hers, right? And so on my birthday, I decided to put that poem out there. And I got such a tremendous response from that I realized that I didn't need to be afraid to share my vulnerable sides.
Oh yeah.
I didn't have just one vulnerable side. I had many vulnerable sides. And all in that one poem, it was all out there. And since then, I realized that vulnerability is a new strength.
Yeah.
And so because I found strength in that post, I realized that there has to be so many other people, women, men, it just everybody um, can relate to some of what I say, or maybe a lot of what I say, or maybe none of what I say. But at the end of the day, I just realized that I was becoming stronger. With each post, I became stronger, had more confidence in my own voice. And I realized that through direct messaging, there are so many people that reach out to me across the world that tell me how much that one of my posts has made a difference to them. And so that's why it sounds like it's a cliche when you say, oh, as long as I help one person, but that's all it really takes for me. That one message, I mean, just makes the biggest difference in my own life. And I am so grateful and so appreciative. And so, yeah, so my whole journey with LinkedIn was an evolution of my own confidence level and of realizing who I am. And I think people who know me before LinkedIn, I mean, they see the transformation. And people who just met me on LinkedIn, I mean, I can't wait for them to see what else is coming, because I just feel like I'm becoming a butterfly. I mean, I'm closer to 60 years old than I am to 50. And I never realized that at this point in my life, I mean, I just started August of 2025 and I'm living my best life right now.
That's lovely. I mean, there's so much. I mean, I can't say this enough, but this is such a great story. You have such an incredible journey. I'm sure we learn a lot more from your memoir. But I think the fact that it's never too late to start,
No, it's
and
never.
and it would be such a beautiful thing. I think we would have not been sitting and chatting and talking with each other if it was not for you to start posting things on LinkedIn, right? So we didn't meet before. I saw you on LinkedIn, I started following you, I reached out to you, and then, this happened. So I am feeling so, so, so inspired by all your stories and everything that you've shared. But now we're going to go to our game segment, which is a
Oh,
very
okay.
simple one to know you a little more. The game is called This or That. Very
Okay.
simple. I give you options. You tell me which one you prefer. Okay?
Okay.
Are
Okay.
we ready?
I'm ready.
Perfect. Are you a dog person or a cat person?
Dog.
Phone call or text?
Phone.
Glasses or contact lenses?
Contact lenses.
Online shopping or shopping in store?
Online.
Cake or ice cream?
Ice cream.
Oceans or mountains?
Ocean.
Movie or reading?
Movie.
All right, that's pretty much it.
Oh.
I think I definitely
Did
know
I
what
did
we
I
need to
pass?
do. Oh yes, absolutely. This is actually me trying to collect the information of what we need to do when we meet next time. So we
Oh.
definitely going to be at the ocean for sure.
Okay, okay. That
Yeah,
sounds
the beach.
exciting. And when we were talking about possibly if you come out to LA, I
Yeah.
live right by the ocean, so we can, manifest it.
Absolutely. And that's all about, what I'm trying to kind of know someone a little more. I know you said phone calls, so I'm going to call you more often that you would like. So now we are friends. You have
Yes.
no way out of it.
Well, I'm going to be a big heart here. Yes, call me anytime.
Lovely. With that, before I wrap up, I would like you to share one final takeaway message for all my listeners, just for them to I learned a lot of insights, but one final takeaway message.
I'm just going to finish off with a tagline that I use on my podcast. And I really do believe that if we can all choose to lead boldly, that can make a big difference in our life, and to choose to see things clearly. And what I mean by that is to start removing a lot of the noise
Yeah,
from our lives, and that will allow you to have a lot more clarity. And the last thing is to live a purposeful life. We only have one life to live. We only have one life to live. And somebody else, I learned this from somebody else. It's like life is not a dress rehearsal. It's not. And so we might as well just go for it.
absolutely. I love it. I think this
Yeah.
has been such an incredible episode. See clearly, lead boldly, and live purposefully. I think that's
Yes.
what is your tagline, and
Yep.
I could
Yep.
not have asked for a better like takeaway message before we end this episode. For all the listeners, I'll be dropping her LinkedIn profile for you to connect with her, as well as link to her podcast. Do give it a like, listen to her channel, follow her. I'm sure we all need that support within the eye care community. And if you have stories, you please feel free to reach out to her and share it to the podcast. And with that, thank you once again, Dr. Chu, for your time. It's been a
Thank you.
pleasure. And again, a very warm welcome to the Nerdy family.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye.